Hello, this is Kathy Pagano, and I'm here to tell you some stories about Venus. Right now in the sky, Venus has turned retrograde. And what that means is that Venus is traveling between the Earth and the Sun, and it appears as if she's going backwards. And psychologically, what happens is we turn that energy within so that we can contemplate what that means to us. Venus is in astrology represents beauty and sex and love and money, but also in a deeper mythological sense, she represents values and she represents wisdom. And so, in turning within, she's asking all of us to look inside ourselves and decide as we start to go back out into the world after self-isolating for a couple of months, what we value. So are we going to value the beauty of the earth, or are we going to go back to consumerism? Are we going to value our time and think about work, a better work and play and life balance than we have with so many of us working so hard? Are we going to go back and worry about money more than love? So there's all of these questions before us. And for these next few months, I thought, why not tell some stories about Venus? So I'm going to share a slide with you. I was going to do a whole slideshow, but my technological, as you can see, my technological capacity is not the greatest all the time. Okay. So anyway, this is Aphrodite. A friend of mine did this. It's fabric art, as you can maybe see. This is all fabric here, and these are literally pearls and doves, and this is Aphrodite rising up from the sea. And that's something that hopefully after her retrograde ends, we will come back and we will arise out of ourselves with a new vision of what we love and what we want out of life. So I'm going to start to tell some stories, but I'm also going to do some reading, so I hope you don't mind. But one of the major things about Aphrodite or Venus, is she's one of the few goddesses that really remained, besides the Christian church keeping a hold of Mary. Most of the other goddesses until very recently were pretty much ignored. We did have Minerva as a goddess of wisdom. And we do have different goddesses that men have looked at, but none have held the power that Venus has held, because of course love is more important than anything else. And love is the one thing that nobody can control. And so in many ways, patriarchy did try to control love. And we see that in the patriarchal marriages that have been such a dominant force in our culture for many thousands of years. And it's about ownership. And still today, we say women are free, but are they really? I have friends who are married and they're still feeling as if they're obligated to their husbands to have sex, Venus, with them, even if they don't want to. So a lot of it is all about how do we let go of the old rules and let Venus or Aphrodite really come into our lives, because Aphrodite is free. Okay, that's one of the big things about her. She isn't owned. After she, and we'll talk about this in other segments that I do, but after she makes love, she goes and takes a bath and she renews her virginity. No one can ever own her, because in truth, who can own love? So anyway, one of the first thing that I want to talk about this week is the idea of Venus or Aphrodite as a creator goddess. She was there at the beginning of the creation story for the Greeks. So let me read it to you a little bit. The ancient Greek story begins with Mother Earth, Gaia. Okay. First there was chaos, and then appeared broad-bosomed Earth, who bore, first of all, and as her equal, the starry sky, Uranus. Then she bore the great mountains, valleys, plains, and the sea. And after that she mated with Uranus and bore many children, among whom were the Titans and Titanesses, the ancestors of those Olympian divinities that we know so much about, and who represented the titanic forces of the earth. Yet although Uranus came every night to mate with his wife Gaia, from the very beginning he hated the children that Gaia bore him. As soon as they were born, he hid them and would not let them come out from into the light. He hid them in the inward hollows of the earth, and it was said that he took pleasure in this wicked deed. The goddess Gaia groaned under this affliction and felt herself oppressed by her inner burden. Therefore, she devised a stratagem. She brought forth gray iron and made a mighty sickle with sharp teeth. Then she took counsel with her sons and daughters, asking who would avenge her for this wicked deed. And only Cronus, who we know as Saturn, took courage and agreed to act on her behalf. So Gaia rejoiced and hid Cronus in the place appointed for the ambush, giving him the sickle and telling him her plan. And when Uranus came at nightfall, inflamed with love and covering all the earth, his son thrust out his left hand and seized his father. With his right hand, he took the huge sickle, quickly cutting off his father's manhood, and he cast it behind him into the sea. Gaia received in her womb the blood shed by her spouse and gave birth to the Erinyes, the strong ones, and to many other creatures. The father's genitals fell into the sea, and it mixed with the foam and gave birth to Aphrodite. And since that time, the sky no longer approached Earth for this nightly mating. So here we have a story about Aphrodite's birth, okay? And there are many stories about Aphrodite's birth. One makes her the daughter of Zeus and Diana, an earth goddess, but that was another patriarchal overlay to this picture. But this is Hesiod's story, and it's about how she was a primal goddess. So here we are, she gave birth to, so here was the Uranus's phallus in the sea, and it says, and it was carried for a long time on the waves. White foam surrounded that immortal flesh, and in it grew a girl. At first it touched down on holy Cytherea. From there it came to Cyprus, encircled by waves. And there the goddess came forth, lovely, much revered, and grass grew up beneath her delicate feet. Her name is Aphrodite among men and gods because she grew up in the foam, and Cytherea, for she reached that land, and Cyprogenes from the stormy place where she was born, and Philomedes from the genitals from which she was conceived. Eros is her companion. Fair desire followed her from the first, both at her birth and when she joined the company of the gods. Now, we look at this and we think, okay, she was born out of this lovely foamy ocean. And we probably think of the Mediterranean since that's where she seemed to come ashore. But if we think of this as a primal ocean, okay, the ocean at the beginning of time, it was a cold ocean, okay? I had a dream when I was young that I was down in that ocean in a sphere, in a bathysphere. And it was the cold of outer space. These big giant leviathans were swimming around. And here, this most precious gift that we have, the gift of love and sexuality and desire, to arise out of that coldness of the universe and the coldness of that primal sea is amazing. And as you'll see in further down the line, as I tell more stories, Aphrodite is not just the goddess of beauty and sexuality, she is the one who initiates our souls. We become aware of ourselves through this goddess. So anyway, this is my first try, and I'm going to stop the share right now. Okay. I didn't want to go overboard. We're going to just do a little at a time. But Aphrodite as the creator goddess. Now, there is another story, if I can find it here. And let's see. Okay. There's one more story about her that we'll talk about, because if Aphrodite is the creator goddess, she's also a fertility goddess. She's one of the primal beings. This is another story about her, okay? It is said that an egg of wonderful size dropped from the sky into the river Euphrates. Fishes rolled it onto the bank, and doves sat on it and warmed it and hatched out Venus, who is known later in as the Syrian goddess. Venus was of surpassing worth and holiness, and Jove granted the fish the privilege of being translated into the stars as the constellation Pisces. On this account, fish and doves were reckoned to be divine by the Syrians, who did not eat them. And so originally, this goes back to when in the Middle East, there was a goddess called Atergatis, who was a mermaid goddess, and we'll talk about that too. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things that we could talk about. Who comes out of the sea is this goddess. It's a combination of fish and woman. And so we think back to the myths of mermaids. So psychologically, mermaids are interesting because fish are kind of like unconscious contents. That's what Jung would call them. So a new content that rises up within us and that we don't know anything about. But it has the body of a woman, the upper body of a woman. And so to me, mermaids are those undistinguishable longings we have for something more, something better. And because it has no feet, it only has a tail, it doesn't have any legs to stand on. And so there's the whole story of the Little Mermaid, where when she gets legs, she loses her voice. And it's that longing, that voice of longing that used to seduce sailors to their deaths that we're looking at. So we have Aphrodite arising out of the sea, of the collective unconscious, arising out of the primal ocean, which all of us came from. And she's remembered too as mermaids. Okay, mermaids are definitely part of her mythology. And so whenever we have a longing that we can't quite put our finger on, a longing that we can't manifest because it doesn't have any legs, that's the mermaid, and that's Aphrodite. Okay, we will stop this now, and I hope that the next few times I do this, I will get my technology working better. So meditate, especially now. Today is Friday, which is Venus's day. Okay, Freya's day, who was the Teutonic goddess of love. This is a great day to meditate on Venus and see what you do. And also because today the moon is in Pisces, today is May 15th. Pay attention. If you watch this today or tomorrow or even a bit on Sunday, pay attention to your dreams. Ask Aphrodite to come to you in your dreams and see what she has to say to you. Okay, until next time, until next Friday, may the goddess of love and beauty and wisdom walk with you.